Good afternoon from Bordeaux. Beautiful day here, and a beautiful day to consider things clearly. The most recent edition of the French commentary affairs magazine Courrier International, basically global events and France's place in them, has done a special issue titled in English, Goodbye America. Now, this comment, this observation, this judgment is important because of the quasi-formality, if you will, or perhaps not quasi, uh, finality of the expression goodbye. Now, this word has more than one meaning, obviously, and I think in the context of Goodbye America in the Trump era, there may be anticipations of what life will be like after Trump. But I think Brexit has taught us that these kinds of decisions, that when a country chooses a particular policy line, consciously or unconsciously, intuitively, not in detail or not with detail, but as in with Brexit, it wasn't the immediate consequence of what the implications were of taking Britain out of the European Union, out of the single market, or for that matter, taking America out of the world liberal order and replacing it with something else. The real issue in the long term, or even the short term, is that the decision reflects a division within the nation in which it is impossible or unlikely to conclude an agreement, say a return to the liberal order, if so many Americans are disenchanted with it. If you can sit down and sort out another agreement and perhaps restore something of what went on before, the danger of a complete reversal of position, because of perhaps even a slight shifting of personal opinion among voters, means it's just not worth betting on. You may have to do it out of necessity, but you have to do it with your hands behind you, tied behind your back, or your fingers crossed, or some version of hoping it will work, even though it doesn't look very promising. With Brexit, the same was true. There have been intimations, suggestions that Britain should re-enjoy the European Union, and I think, curiously, and we'll go back to Canada, I think Canada can help us with that, because it addresses the issue I'm raising, is how we can come to a conclusion, in the case of Britain and the United States, having been done something unexpected and I think unwise, how can that be put right? And it may be possible with Canada's help to put right the British decision. But the problem from Brussels, vis-a-vis the United States or vis-a-vis Britain, is this large body of opinion in the country which is disenchanted, disaffected, angry, what have you. Now, that's all fine. That's a clear intellectual position. But we can say something more important here, because the real implication, from my point of view, of the cover story, of the headline of the Courrier International, is if we're going to say goodbye to America from a European point of view, then clearly the implication must be hello, Canada. Canada is our compensatory heaven here. Canada does geopolitically, as I've suggested in previous podcasts, allows us to repick the pieces up of the new American disorder and put things as right as we are able on a broad consensus basis. Canada's disaffection with the international liberal order underscored, but nevertheless, given the present state of opinion and feeling in Canada, given the dangers that affect Canada, the single-minded disaffection, the idea of Saskatchewan joining the United States. No, that isn't going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to be a mess. Really, you have to think about these things more carefully than that, despite the genuineness of the disaffection. But overall, I think from a European point of view, Canada is as to borrow an expression from someone else, is someone we can do business with, and we need to be able to do business with someone. Canada needs to be able to do business with someone. And there is this range of territory and polity and economic vitality and movement of goods and services and capital that links, if you will, what we can salvage of the liberal global order, which extends from European Union to North America, and particularly Canada. Mexico is an interesting addition to this. And then we go down to East Asia, that I've alluded to before, certainly Japan and South Korea, and then Australia and New Zealand. And that's the beginning of a system that inherits, continues, builds on what has gone before, and offers us a chance for some kind of stability. It precludes, by and large, the kind of abrupt, permanent break in consensus that we found in the United States and Britain. Now, Brexit happened in 2016, and we're slowly mending that because we need to. And the Trump-Putin squeeze, plus the chaos of the Middle East, all reminds us of how much we need to rely on one another to salvage and make sense of and keep our economies on some kind of stable footing. Now, Canada. What I'm really getting at in the midst of this is the European rediscovery of the New World from not the colonial era repetition, but the need to re-engage with the New World, the possibilities and the promise of the New World. And to me, those promises and hopes all carry the label Made in Canada. And as I said, and would repeat again from an earlier thing, we need here in Europe to think about Canada seriously, and you guys need to think about us. And we think of the recent trade negotiations for some kind of deal, what have you. We need to rethink about these things more seriously, and we need to engage our populations, our electorates on both sides to make sure they're on board with this, because the hour is urgent. But I cannot overemphasize what appears to me today obvious, is that whatever future Western Europe, or for that matter, the whole of Europe, under the guise of the leadership of Brussels and the various powers that make Europe what it is, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to engage in a vision that includes other countries outside Western Europe, and the obvious place we need to focus our energies, our understanding, our capacity to make sensible decisions, to build, rely on in emergencies to defend one another, building on the implicit structure in NATO, is Canada. We're not asking Canada to be the answer to our problems, but we are certainly thinking that together we're going to find those answers. And therefore, again, reaching across the Atlantic now more than ever, it's time to talk business, talk security, as we already are, and to see what we can salvage out of the chaos of the world. Because chaos is intolerable. Chaos isn't by its almost basic nature not likely to be sustainable, but pieces need to be picked up. Let us begin.